I watched a guy walk up to a girl at a bar last week. He said 3 words. She smiled, touched his arm, and 10 minutes later, they were making out in the corner. But same night, a different guy stood 15 feet away from a woman he liked for 40 minutes. Just stood there, staring at his phone, pretending to text, working up the courage. She later left with her friends, and he left alone. But here's the thing that'll mess with your head. The second guy was better looking. He had more money, better job, better everything. So why did he lose? Well, because he had a disease. The same disease that's probably keeping you stuck right now. It's called the fear of rejection. And it doesn't just stop you from approaching women, it stops you from living like a man. But here's what nobody tells you about this fear. It's not real. I don't mean it doesn't feel real, it does. I mean the threat itself is imaginary. Your brain is treating a 20-second conversation like you're about to get mauled by a bear. And the craziest part, you believe it. You've been believing it for so long that you think it's just who you are. I'm not the kind of guy who approaches women, but that's not true. You're just the kind of guy who hasn't learned how to turn off the alarm system yet. But by the end of this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to delete this fear. Not manage it, not cope with it, but delete it completely. So that 6 months from now, walking up to a woman you're attracted to feels as natural as ordering coffee. But listen, if you want the fastest way to understand what she's actually thinking, if she's interested, if she's playing games, if she's wasting your time, grab the truth detector. First link in the description. It'll solve this problem faster than anything else I've found. But either way, what I'm about to show you will flip everything you thought you knew about rejection. Let's start with the real problem. And no, it's not what you think. You think the problem is that you're afraid of rejection, but that's not it. The real problem is that you've made rejection mean something it doesn't. Think about the last time you wanted to approach a woman but didn't. What stopped you? If you're honest, it wasn't the word no. It was the nightmare scenario that played in your head after the no. You imagined her looking at you with disgust. You imagined her friends laughing. You imagined yourself walking away humiliated while everyone watches. You imagined yourself as the pathetic guy who thought he had a chance. But here's the question. Has that ever actually happened? Have you ever approached a woman and she screamed, "Get away from me, you disgusting loser," while pointing and laughing? Probably not. But your brain doesn't care. Because your brain isn't designed to evaluate reality. It's designed to keep you safe. And somewhere along the way, it decided that approaching women is dangerous. So now, every time you even think about walking over, your amygdala, your fear center, starts screaming danger signals. Your heart races, your palms sweat, your throat tightens, and you interpret all of that as proof that something terrible is about to happen. But here's what I discovered after approaching hundreds of women and getting rejected more times than I can count. The fear in your head and the actual reality are two completely different things. The fear says she'll humiliate you, but the reality, she says, "I have a boyfriend," and goes back to her phone. 3 seconds, that's it. No drama, no audience, no catastrophe, just information that she's not available. So, why does it feel so much bigger in your head? Because you're not afraid of her saying no. You're afraid of what her no means about you. And this is where everything falls apart. When a woman rejects you, you don't hear "I'm not interested." You hear "You're not good enough." You don't hear "I have a boyfriend." You hear "You're not attractive enough to make me leave him." You don't hear "I'm not in the mood to talk." You hear "You're the type of man women avoid." You've turned a neutral event into a trial where you're the defendant and the verdict is always guilty. Now here's where it gets interesting. According to research by psychologist Albert Ellis, the guy who basically invented cognitive behavioral therapy, this is called catastrophic thinking. You take one specific event and blow it up into a global truth about yourself. One woman says no, and suddenly you're unlovable. But think about how insane that is. She doesn't know you. You haven't even spoken yet. So what is she actually rejecting in those 3 seconds? Your face, your outfit, your opening line? None of those things define your worth as a man, but you've made them the ultimate measurement. You've given a stranger who knows nothing about your character, your achievements, your story. You've given her the power to determine whether you're valuable. So here's the shift that changes everything. What if rejection has nothing to do with you? What if it's just information about compatibility, timing, circumstance? She's not interested. Okay, maybe she's gay. Maybe she just got dumped yesterday and isn't ready. Maybe you remind her of her ex. Maybe she's having the worst day of her life. Maybe she only dates tall guys. Maybe she's married. There are literally 1,000 variables you can't control and don't even know about, but you've collapsed all of them into one meaning: I'm not good enough. And that's the lie that's keeping you trapped. Therefore, the goal isn't to approach more women. The goal is to change what rejection means in your brain before you approach anyone. Because if you walk up to 100 women with the same catastrophic story in your head, you're just traumatizing yourself 100 times. You're not building immunity, you're deepening the wound. So let me tell you about the worst rejection I ever experienced. 3 years ago, house party. I saw this girl on the couch, blonde, laughing with her friends. I'd been working on myself, gym, books, all that. I told myself tonight was different, so I walked over, heart pounding, hands shaking. I said something about the music. She looked up at me, smiled that polite smile that's not really a smile, and said, "I'm good. Thanks," then turned back to her friends. Her friend rolled her eyes. I stood there for what felt like an hour, but was probably 3 seconds. Then I walked away. Here's what happened next. I left the party, drove home, sat in my car for 20 minutes replaying every millisecond. The way she looked at me, the eye roll, the tone when she said, "I'm good." I turned it into a full autopsy. She thought you were pathetic. Everyone saw. You're the creepy guy now. I didn't sleep that night, couldn't eat the next day. And for weeks after, every time I saw an attractive woman, that moment would flash in my head and I'd feel that same crushing shame. But here's what I didn't realize until much later. She said 7 words and moved on with her night. I was the one who kept it alive for weeks. I took those 7 words and built an entire narrative about my worthlessness. I did that to myself, not her. And that's when I started asking a different question. What if I'm wrong about what rejection means? What if the story I'm telling myself is the actual problem? So I started testing something. I started engineering tiny rejections throughout my day where the stakes were 0. Asked a barista for a discount I knew I wouldn't get. Asked strangers for directions when I already knew where I was going. Requested things at restaurants that I knew they couldn't do. And something fascinating happened. They said no, and nothing else happened. No catastrophe, no humiliation. The barista said, "Sorry, I can't," and smiled and made my coffee. The world kept spinning, and my amygdala, my fear center, started getting confused. It was screaming danger, but the danger never showed up. This is called fear extinction. It's how they treat phobias. You expose yourself to the feared thing in a controlled way, prove to your nervous system that the threat isn't real, and the fear response weakens. But here's the key. It only works if you're actually paying attention to what happens. Most guys get rejected and immediately spiral into the story. They don't notice that nothing bad actually occurred. They're too busy catastrophizing. So after a week of these micro rejections, something shifted. The fear spike before asking got smaller. Not because I became some alpha male overnight, but because my brain had new data. We've been rejected 12 times this week and nothing bad happened. My amygdala started to relax. The threat alarm got quieter. And suddenly the idea of approaching a woman didn't feel like stepping off a cliff anymore. It felt neutral, low stakes, just a question that might get a yes or a no. But then came the real test. I was at a different bar, saw a woman who genuinely intimidated me, the type of beautiful that usually made me look away and pretend not to notice. But something was different this time. I felt the fear spike, same physical sensation as always, but instead of interpreting it as "you're not good enough for her," I just noticed it. Oh, there's the activation. My body's getting ready. I walked over before my brain could manufacture reasons not to. I said something forgettable, asked what she was drinking. But here's what was different. I wasn't performing. I wasn't trying to be impressive or funny or mysterious. I was just present. We talked for maybe 10 minutes. She mentioned her boyfriend. And here's the crazy part. I didn't feel crushed. I didn't spiral. I just thought, okay, not compatible, and wrapped up the conversation naturally, walked away. And as I walked away, I felt something I'd never felt before. Proud. Not because I won, I didn't get her number, but because I'd done the thing I used to think was impossible. I'd approached someone who intimidated me and handled the rejection without it meaning anything about my worth. Now here's what most guys miss. They think the goal is to get her to say yes, but that's backwards. The goal is to become the kind of man who can handle either answer without his self-worth moving. Because here's what happens when you stop needing the yes. When you're genuinely outcome independent, you actually become more attractive. Women can smell desperation from a mile away. They can sense when your entire emotional state hangs on their response, and it repels them. But when you approach with the energy of, "I'm curious if we vibe," and I'll be fine either way. That's magnetic. You're not asking for validation, you're offering an opportunity. So here's the actual system. For the next 30 days, you're going to approach 3 women per week. Not pickup attempts, just conversations. Walk up, say something, see what happens. Some will be receptive, some won't. Doesn't matter. You're not measuring success by outcomes. You're measuring it by whether you approached at all. Because every approach, regardless of result, is teaching your brain that this action doesn't lead to catastrophe. You're collecting evidence, and after 30 days, the fear won't be gone, but it won't be in control anymore. But there's one more thing you need to understand, because even after you've deleted the fear of rejection, there's still a voice that says, but what if I meet the one and she rejects me? What if I blow my only chance? And this fear is actually more dangerous because it keeps you waiting. It keeps you from approaching anyone, because what if you waste your confidence on the wrong person? Here's the truth. There is no one chance. There is no perfect woman you'll only meet once. That's the scarcity thinking that keeps you paralyzed. The woman who's actually right for you won't reject you based on a nervous approach. She'll see the courage. She'll appreciate the attempt. And if there's real compatibility, a slightly awkward opener won't destroy it. But you know what will destroy it? Never approaching at all. And here's the real reason that fear is garbage. The version of you who's confident enough to approach the one without fear is the same version who's been approaching everyone else consistently. You don't save up confidence for the big moment. You build it through repetition. Every woman you approach is practice. Every rejection is training. You're not wasting anything. You're investing in the man who will be ready when it counts. Now, everything I've shared with you, the psychology, the reframes, the system, took me years to figure out through painful trial and error. But I've put all of it, along with the deeper strategies for reading women's actual intentions, into the truth detector. It covers not just rejection, but how to know if she's genuinely interested, if she's playing games, if she's using you for attention. First link in the description. It'll get you there faster than anything else. But here's what you need to do right now, not tomorrow. Today, engineer one small rejection. Ask for something you know you won't get, just to prove to yourself that rejection doesn't kill you. Then tomorrow, do it again. After a week of this, approach someone you find attractive, not to get a number, just to practice being the kind of man who approaches. Will you feel fear? Yes. Will it be uncomfortable? Probably. But will you survive? Every single time. And that's the data your brain needs. You don't get rid of fear by thinking about it differently. You get rid of it by repeatedly doing the thing you're afraid of and surviving. There's no shortcut, no magic mindset shift. You have to walk through the fire. But here's the beautiful part. The fire isn't real. It's a story your brain invented. And the moment you walk through it and realize you're not burning, everything changes. You don't become fearless and then approach. You approach while afraid and become fearless through repetition. And 6 months from now, when talking to women feels natural, you'll barely recognize the guy reading this right now. You don't get over rejection by avoiding it. You get over it by collecting so many rejections that they become meaningless. And the man who can handle 100 no's without his self-worth moving, that's the man women say yes to. YouTube thinks you'll really love this video, so click on it and I'll see you there.